Okay, everybody, let's kick this off. We are live streaming a little bit of this session. So if you are out on social, you may see that. But let's get right into our first ergonomics session of the day. So with us, we have Justin Zimmerman. And Justin is an injury prevention specialist at WorkRight. And he's been with WorkRight for just over 3 years now. But prior to that, he was an intern athletic trainer for football, and he was at the University of Tennessee. And before that, you were an athletic trainer. So welcome, Justin. What do you have for us today?
Thank you very much for that great introduction. It's cool to now say that I was an intern with the University of Tennessee football team because now they're actually playing well. So that's great. I can take pride in that now. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our ergo moment for the day, a little bit about ergonomics, and just get up and get us moving around so we're not just sitting at our desks all day. But there are 3 components of our ergo moment today, which are all 3 solid components of any good pre-shift warm-up program, which is flexibility, which is our body's, our soft tissue's ability to lengthen. So most pre-shift warm-up programs will have something along those lines, but will neglect mobility, which is our joints' ability to move through a range of motion. We have industrial athletes. We need to look at them as athletes. We want to make sure we cover all of our bases. There will also be a small strengthening component as well. Don't worry, I'm not making anybody do 100 squats, but we have to make sure we cover all 3 bases because, as we all know as safety professionals, the largest body of evidence that supports injury reduction is strengthening all of our soft tissue. So we're going to get started. We can start off just sitting in our chairs. We're going to go with neck circles. So you're going to tuck your chin, your chest, go as far as you can and go nice and slow. Now we're going to go to the left, our ear to shoulder. Now we're going to move our head all the way back, extended, looking up towards the ceiling. Right ear to right shoulder. Go as far as you can, nice, slow, and controlled. Now we're going to reverse that, go the opposite way. Right ear to right shoulder. Extend it all the way back, looking towards the ceiling. Left ear to left shoulder. And back to the center. So that would be an example of a mobility drill. Now we're going to go into a flexibility drill. So we're going to put our left arm behind our back. Right arm is going to reach across the top of our head, trying to touch our opposite ear. And we're going to pull our head to the right. Make sure you relax your left shoulder. People who have the tendency, if they have tight traps, to lift this shoulder up. You want to make sure it's nice, down, and relaxed. We're going to hold this for about 10 more seconds. So anytime you're doing any flexibility training, really you want to hold a minimum of 20 seconds. 20 to 40 seconds is the most ideal. Now we're going to switch sides. Right arm is going to go behind your back. Left arm above your head, almost like you're trying to grab your ear. And you're going to pull your ear to your shoulder. Make sure to relax this right arm. We're going to hold here for about 10 more seconds. So if you're working at a desk all day, you've got tight neck muscles, tight upper traps, this is a great stretch that we recommend. And relax. Good. So now we're going to go back to a mobility drill for our shoulders, just like what we did for our neck. And now we need to use it for our shoulders. So we're going to start with our right thumb, our right arm. So thumb up, you're going to reach all the way back as far as you can. So my thumb is up, I hit this block. I feel like I can't go any further. Now I'm going to turn my hand out and swim my arm all the way through. If you hear some popping and crunching, that's totally fine as long as it's not painful. I'm going to do one more. So my thumb is up. I'm going to go back as far as I can. Once I hit that block, I'm going to turn my hand out, swim my arm the rest of the way through. Now we're going to reverse that. So now we're going to lead pinky up. So my pinky is going up first. I hit that block. I can't go any further. I'm going to turn my palm out and swim my arm the rest of the way through. So you might also feel a little bit of a stretch in your pec here as well. So one more. Hit that block. Turn your hand out. Come the rest of the way through. Good. Now we're going to do the same thing for our opposite side. Thumb up. Left arm's going back as far as it can go. It hits that block. Turn your hand out. Swim your arm the rest of the way through. One more. You want to make sure you're doing these nice, slow, and controlled. We're not trying to compensate. We want to really focus on that particular joint. Now we're going to reverse it. Pinky up. Hit that block. Turn your hand out. Swim it the rest of the way through. Good. One more. Pinky up. Hit that block. Turn your palm up. Swing your arm the rest of the way through. So this feels great. This is one of the ones that my industrial athletes will use most often, even on their breaks or their lunch breaks before they return back to work. So now we're going to work on a little bit of flexibility. We're going to lock our hands behind our back, push our arms down, and push our chest out. Now we're trying to open up our chest, stretch our pecs. So we're going to hold this for about 10 to 15 seconds. Make sure you do this gently. This is a stretch, just like a couple other stretches for your chest that people can injure themselves if they work into it too quickly. Hold for a few more seconds. Good. All right, now we're going to stand up, get moving around a little bit. Now we're going to do a mobility drill for our mid back. So you're going to cross your arms in front of you. You're going to round your back forward as far as you can. Good. Now I can't go any further. Now I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to try and rotate the middle part of my back. I'm going to rotate back as far as I can go. Nice, slow, and controlled. Now I'm coming to the right as far as I can go. And I'm back to the center. Now I'm going to reverse that and go back the opposite way. So I'm really rounding my back, going to the right, going back as far as I can. Nice, slow, and controlled. Trying to move around all those little joints in your spine. Now I'm going to the left. Good. And I'm coming back to the center. All right, now we're going to move to something a little bit more challenging. This could also be a balance exercise, but if you need some help or some assistance, hold on to your chair. We're going to start by driving our right knee up as high as we can. Now we're going to internally rotate our hip. So my knee is coming in, my left foot is going out, or my right foot's going out, and I'm making a big exaggerated step behind it here. So we're trying to do a rotational type movement for our hip joints. One more time, drive that right knee up, internally rotate your hips, so your knee's going to come in, your right foot's going to kick out, and big exaggerated step behind you. Good. Now, if you can do that without a chair, it's a great balance exercise. You can try that, just don't fall over. Now we're going to reverse that. So we're going to externally rotate our hips. So my knee is coming out, my foot is coming in, and I'm taking a big step forward, like I'm stepping over an imaginary hurdle. One more. And all of these are scalable. You can modify them if you can't go the full range of motion. Okay. All right, now we're going to switch to our opposite side. Left leg, drive that left knee up as far as you can. Now, knee comes in, left foot comes out. Big step behind, big exaggerated circle. Okay, one more. Left knee comes up, knee comes in, left foot comes out, internally rotating our hip. Because our hip internally rotates and externally rotates. Now we're going to reverse it. Knee out, foot comes in, big exaggerated step like you're stepping over a baby gate. One more. Big step forward. Good. Now you can take a seat if you need to. We're going to do the same thing for our ankles. So 2 circles both ways, nice, slow, and controlled. Because as Sarah covered yesterday, in order to squat effectively, we need to make sure we have adequate ankle mobility. So 2 times, both ways, nice big circle. Switch sides. This is huge. We're going to make sure people are not compensating. So they're trying to squat to lift up objects at work. Well, they feel like they can't squat properly, or they're squatting with poor body mechanics. Now, in order to protect their back, they're squatting, but they can't do it effectively. Now they've got knee pain. So then they go back to lifting improperly because their knee hurts. Now they have a low back injury. So all this stuff feeds in and works together. Now we're going to get into our strengthening component. You're going to squat down as low as you can go. Take a step back here. Push your knees out as you squat down. Pause for a second, and then come back up. Now we're going to squat again. Keep your feet in contact with the ground the entire time, as low as you can go. Push those knees out. My back and my spine is staying nice and flat and neutral. And then come up. Let's get 3 more of those. So my butt's going back. So my butt's going back first, not my knees. This is a knee dominant squat. This is a hip dominant squat. This is what we want. So my hips are going back, pushing my knees out. Pause for a second. Come up. 2 more. Nice, slow, and controlled. Pushing those knees out. My chest is up high. Last one. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit of a burn in your legs. Okay, now we're gonna go to a reverse lunge. So my left leg is gonna be forward. Use something for balance if you need it. My left leg is forward. My right leg is going back. My right leg, my back leg is just for balance. Okay, all the weight and emphasis should be on your lead leg. This is how we're gonna strengthen our quad on our left leg side. And then come up. Good. This can also be for balance. So left leg's forward, right leg is going back. I'm stepping back as far as I can. I might also give a little bit of a light stretch. My hip flexors on this side. Pause for a second, come up. And I'm just focusing on using my lead leg to come up. 1 more on this side, stepping back. Knee touches the ground, pause. My chest is still up high, and come up. Now we're gonna switch sides. Right leg forward, left leg goes back. Knee touches the ground, and then come up. 2 more. Left knee hits the ground. Push my hips forward, feel a little bit of a light stretch, and come up. Last one, and then we're done with strengthening. Good, perfect. So now we're just gonna finish up with a light quad stretch, and then we'll move on to the next activity for the day. You're gonna kick your foot in your hand from your right leg side. Now, most people will stretch their quads like this. You might feel a little bit of a light stretch, but we want to kick back into our hand to feel that stretch in our hip. This is good, especially if you work at a desk all day, you get tight hip flexors, and contribute to a little bit of low back pain. We want to make sure we open up all these muscles in the front of our hip. Then we're going to switch to our left side. Left foot in your hand. Kick back into your hand. We'll hold for about 10 more seconds. Again, you should feel a little bit of a light stretch, just like any stretch exercise, mobility drill. Have people work into it slowly so they don't hurt themselves. If you have any questions, I'll be at the Work Right booth all day and happy to answer any questions you may have. That's all I got for you. I believe you're muted tomorrow.
Oh, workplace hazard, I'm muted. Yeah, well, that's a thing. Anyway, if you want to connect with Justin, I have just dropped his LinkedIn into the chat. So please make sure that you do connections, because that's what Safety Connect is all about, right? Making connections, meeting and networking and learning from people. And I also wanted to share with people, if you haven't heard yet, we do have our community that we will be unveiling in November officially. We will be unveiling in November. So I'm going to set that in the chat as well. So here we are. So take a moment to sign up for the community, because we're going to have more great discussions, more great opportunities of learning, just like Justin has shared with us today on ergonomics and various topics. So thank you very much, Justin, for sharing this with us today. That was great. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I would like to invite everybody to welcome our next guest. So if we can invite Dr. Ivan Pupulidy to the stage, welcome. Very glad to have you here, Dr. Pupulidy at Safety Connect. Now, for those of you who are new to meeting Dr. Pupulidy, he's a professor at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. but he's also the HOP and New View coach at Dynamic Inquiry. And I'm going to be dropping his LinkedIn information in the chat in a little bit once he gets started. But he's going to share with us today his discussion on moving gracefully from compliance to learning. And I really love that title, so I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us. So Ivan is an international speaker and consultant who's focused on risk, safety, aviation, wildland, firefighting, and human and organizational performance. So definitely want to hear all about that. It sounds very exciting. He has the ability to integrate academic research with real world application. So you know that I love that. And you do this from your life experiences. And I love storytelling. And I love to hear about what other people are getting up to. So I'm very excited to hear this. So the other thing that I wanted to share with you is that he's just been promoted to the position of Director of the Office of Innovation and Organizational Learning for the USFS. As the
Forest Service.
Yes. So as the U.S. Forest Service Director, Ivan developed and implemented the Learning Review, which is a process designed to improve how large and small organizations respond to accidents and incidents. And I know everybody in the room is very interested in learning about that. The Learning Review is centered on understanding and mapping systems conditions that influence human actions. He has represented the U.S. Forest Service to the Obama White House, where he presented the Learning Review and HOP concepts during a forum on wildland firefighters safety. So that sounds very exciting. So we're interested in hearing all about that. Ivan earned a Master's of Science degree in Human Factors and System Safety at Lund University in Sweden under Professor Sidney Dekker, and he complemented his PhD in social psychology and organizational culture at Tilburg University in the Netherlands. He now brings his academic credentials and real-world experiences to the University of Alabama as a professor and a guest lecturer at Yale University. So welcome, Dr. Pupulidy. It's wonderful to have you with us.
And thank you so much, Tamara. I'm happy to be here, and it's a great opportunity to talk with your group here at Safeopedia. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So we're going to talk today about moving gracefully from compliance to learning. This is a story. It's a story about the way the Forest Service approached a crisis of trust that we were having. We're going to talk a little bit about what caused that crisis of trust, and we're going to talk a little bit about the methodologies that we employed to try and create a cultural change inside the organization. So my background, Tamara gave you quite a bit of it, but I want to tell you that I came to safety, what I say is organically. I came to safety as an operator first. So I flew airplanes for the Coast Guard for 10 years active duty, for the Air Force Reserves for another 12 years. And for the Forest Service, I also flew as a pilot, flying a little airplane that guides the tankers and overfires. And I did that for 24 years before I retired from the Forest Service. No longer the director, I retired actually as the director of the Office of Innovation and Learning. So let's talk a little bit about this self-designing cultural change in the Forest Service story. That's where we're going to go. And we're going to tell a story that has embedded stories. And we're going to talk a little bit about the way we got there. And the way we got there was this massive thing that you see, which are our evolutionary milestones. But obviously, in the time that we have allotted, we're not going to be able to talk about all of this. Instead, what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about specific parts of what we did with leadership and how we affected leadership's understanding of how safety works. We're going to talk a little bit about how research fits into this, but mainly we're going to talk about this awful model that we had, the serious accident investigation model, and how we challenged that, and how we worked with Los Alamos National Lab to understand and develop HOP, and how we developed HOP for the Forest Service, and then shared those dialogues throughout the organization. So what is HOP? Maybe we should start there. Well, HOP starts with this challenging the assumptions that leaders and others hold within the organization. So my leadership often asks me this question: why don't people just follow the rules? Well, that's my dog at the market standing next to the sign that says no dogs at the market, please. Clearly, I'm not following the rules. There were a lot of other dogs at the market. It's not just my dog. So let's think about what happens with rules and why rules maybe become unfollowable. Well, sometimes rules look like this: keep off red line, which I'd be happy to do if I could find the red line. Sometimes they look like this, and it just takes us too much time to try and understand the rules. Sometimes the rules look just like this. This is literally on the road from Los Alamos National Lab going down into Santa Fe, New Mexico. How do I follow this? And sometimes rules look like this. But my favorite is this. So as we start to think about this, sometimes the rules themselves lack fidelity. And if a single rule lacks fidelity, it challenges the validity of all other rules. And we have to think about that. So rules aren't a simple thing. Rules are a complex interaction, relationship with people. And that has to be understood. HOP helps us to couch this idea of the relationships of rules with the workforce in a way that makes leadership understand that it isn't as simple as simply following the rules. But that's not enough. We also faced this crisis of trust that I mentioned. And the crisis of trust was around the way we responded to organizational accidents. Our organization used this thing called the Serious Accident Investigation Guide, which we're going to get into a little bit. And we're going to get into it around this one particular accident that took the life of 3 friends of mine, one particularly good friend whose voice I can always still hear in my head. And here they are. Here are the 3 guys that died September 1st, 2008. And the accident itself was a really interesting accident. The accident involved the explosion of the right-hand outboard jet engine. And when that engine exploded, it peppered the underside of the wing on the opposite side of the aircraft. And when it did that, it punched a bunch of holes in the fuel tank, because the wing is where we hold fuel in airplanes. And when that fuel was released into the airstream, it ignited and it began to burn violently. And that fire resulted in the destruction of wing structure. We literally have pools of molten aluminum representing pieces of the wing, leading from where the engine exploded to the point of impact of the aircraft. So there's one way to tell that story, and that story could be told around the explosion of that engine and the destruction of the left wing of the aircraft. But that's not the way the story was told. Instead, they used the transcript, and here's 26.9 seconds of transcript. They used a transcript to draw attention to a lack of ability or lack of willingness, apparently, on the part of the crew to follow rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. So let's just go through this. Now, remember, this is 26.9 seconds. The first thing that the CVR indicates is whoa, followed by the sound of heavy breathing. Then a few seconds later, we got a fire over here, a big old fire. And again, I can hear Gene's voice. I'm holding full right aileron, trying to control the aircraft. The CVR indicated the captain made a sound of heavy breathing. The CVR indicated the captain made the sound of heavy breathing. The CVR indicated the sound of impact, end of recording. Now, the guide, the Serious Accident Investigation Guide, like many of the instructions that we have in terms of investigation, said this in the very first paragraph or the first section of the first page of this report. The causes of most accidents or incidents are a result of failures to observe established policies, procedures, and controls. So naturally, following this guidance, the investigation team came up with this causal statement. The failure of the flight crew to maintain airspeed above in-flight minimum control speed after losing power in the left jet engine during initial climb after takeoff. Contributing to the accident was the crew's inadequate cockpit resource management procedures, the failure of the captain to assume command of the airplane during the emergency, the flight crew's failure to carry out the jet engine fire emergency procedure, and the failure of the crew to jettison the retardant load. Now, this is one way to tell the story, but when we tell the story in this way, what we do is we hurt people. We blame people for their own death. And this sent a ripple effect throughout the entire community. So I had a lot of friends who suffered under this austere type of investigation. And some of them lost their jobs, some of them lost their lives. But the conclusion of these reports wasn't that the system got better. The conclusion was that we created second victims. And we used human error as a cause, but that human error didn't help us to learn. Everybody makes mistakes. We all know that. So if the system is so fragile that a single error can result in this, can result in catastrophe, then we're not robust enough in our system. But the focus is on the individual and not on the system. So we also recognize that the same thing was happening outside the Forest Service.